Episode 157, Killing 2 Birds with 1 Stone. If everything was true, then Stephen Wrong would get to live. If not, then it would be worse than death. Pinching her own arm, Lila Cox was in a fret as she gazed at Stephen, who was looking at her with pleading eyes. As if he was following Jake's words, one of the bodyguards had moved behind Stephen and put his hand on Stephen's bare inner thigh with a blade. Shuddering, Stephen cried out, "Please, Lila, I've done so much for you. I don't want anything back in return, but you can't watch them do this to me. If he was really at the mercy of these people, which Stephen would be, everyone could imagine what would happen to him. Lila Cox was not an idiot. In fact, she was very intelligent. And because of her intelligence, she knew very well what would happen to her if she had confessed at this point. Seeing her being conflicted, Stephen was overjoyed. He knew it. He knew it. She would not let that happen to him, right? She would not disregard his suffering, right? "Stephen Wrong?" With her throat dry, Lila called, looking cold, as if a bucket of ice was poured over his heart. Stephen felt his last and only ray of hope put out. No. No. Lila's words next made him collapse. She said, "I cannot admit to things that I never did." He felt every ounce of his energy being drained out. Lying on the floor, limp, he could not get up. Looking at Stephen Wrong sympathetically, the hunter said, "Boss, what should we do with him?" Looking towards Lila Cox deeply, Jake said slowly, "He's yours." The bodyguards were overjoyed, gawking at Stephen with lust, contempt, and desire. They approached Stephen, and this time, Stephen did not even struggle. His resistance had vanished, and he was lying there almost lifeless. His eyes looked blank as he gazed into the distance, and then glanced at Lila with his heart dead. Nothing hurt more than having one's hope crushed, not even death. Stephen surrendered to his fate, letting them do whatever they wanted with his body. Not daring to face his gaze, Lila turned her head away and clenched her fists. She knew that he had been great to her, but she could not sacrifice herself for him. If she confessed at this point, it would be a slap in her face. If Jake came to know the truth, she and her whole family would be doomed. She could not ruin her entire family and their reputation. Her last and best bet was to only use Serena. Hearing the rustling not far from her, Lila felt like her heart was sliced into pieces, and her eyes became wet. However, she did not say anything. There was regret in her heart for whatever was happening to Stephen, but she had to be selfish. And besides, wasn't Stephen the only one who knew her secret? If he was out of the way, there would be no way to prove she was at fault. "Go inside," said Jake, in his voice deep and mellow. "Don't do it in front of the lady." The bodyguards got the command and pulled Stephen Wrong into a room. Lila wrung her own hands and looked towards the room. She immediately saw the despair in Stephen's eyes. He looked like he was about to go mad. His eyes bloodshot, he shouted, "Lila! Lila!" The door of the room was standing ajar. Soon she heard deep growls and flesh hitting flesh. Each sound made Lila's scalp prickle. Oh, Stephen. Stephen. Poor Stephen. Bang. The door was shut, keeping all the noises inside. Lila collapsed on the sofa with her face pale. She was the one who pushed him down the abyss.
"This is the house I prepared for you. Do you like it?"
Jake suddenly asked, with an unnoticeable hint. As if in a trance, she heard his words and looked at him. Jake's eyes were as deep as the ocean. He said,
"Consider this house a gift for the baby. You could live here from now on."
Baby. A gift for the baby. Was he admitting it? Did he finally accept the child was his? Lila, dumbfounded, looked at him with confusion.
"You can keep all the bodyguards as well. They will be responsible for his safety."
With one hand in his pocket, Jake stared at her. Under the lighting in the living room, he looked like he was shining, like the man she secretly drew in her paintings. So dazzling. Her heart thumped, her eyes unable to move away from him. He was looking at her. He really was. She had been waiting for so long. With her eyes tearing up, Lila looked at him and called, "Oh, Jake!" For so many years, she had come to believe that what she always wanted was merely an illusion. She had thought that he could be nothing but a dream for her. But this house was for her baby. He believed her. He really and finally believed that this was their baby. The hunter stood on the side and felt shocked. Did the boss mean it? Although the house was not in the city center, it was quite big and at least cost tens of millions. Was he giving it away? Barton Hills was still a prime property in Austin. The hunter felt dumbfounded, but looking at Lila's reaction, he immediately thought of a word: seduction. However, what did the boss want to achieve?
"Lila, please get some rest. It's almost the crack of dawn,"
Jake said thoughtfully.
"In a bit, the nannies will come over to take care of you."
It was the first time she had seen him speaking so gently. In addition, he had arranged bodyguards and nannies for her. Also, he did it himself. This was something she could not even dream of in her wildest dream. Suddenly, her heart warm, she asked, "Jake, why are you suddenly so nice to me?" Jake heard her words, and his eyes became deeper as he glanced at her pregnant belly. She finally understood. He might really take this baby for his own. She was even happier. So, when Serena made her lose the baby, Jake's reaction would definitely be on point. Two birds with one stone. She could clear her name and her family's. This would mean that Serena could never stand next to him. With Auntie Nola's help, Lila could replace Serena and become the new Mrs. Robinson. Exhilarated, she felt she was getting closer and closer to her target. Bang! A loud sound came from the room where Stephen was, shocking Lila and bringing her back to reality. The door of the room was opened. A bodyguard walked out, looking panicked. He could not speak, so he gestured with his hands. Jake had a sharp look in his eyes.
"You're saying that Stephen Wrong committed suicide?"